My Humvee got hit by a roadside bomb. Threw it 20 meters, flipping it upside down. I was the only survivor. I was burnt over 38% of my body. My head was burnt to the skull. I eventually lost my left hand, had it amputated.
G'day, and welcome to Wellbeing. I'm Jack Hodgins. Continuing our look into PTSD and veterans, we are joined by Bobby Henline, an Iraq War veteran with a PTSD story. Bobby joined the Army in 1989, aged 17, as a part of Operation Desert Storm. But it was in the Iraq War in 2007 that Bobby was in a Humvee blown up by an explosive. Bobby received burns to 38% of his body and lost his left hand. Bobby has not just been battling the physical injuries from that day, but the mental ones, having had PTSD as a result of his service. Also, Bobby has since become a comedian, and his comedy is based around his service and has been described as self-deprecating humour. Hello, Bobby, and welcome to Wellbeing.
Hello.
Before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Bobby?
I joined the Army here in the U.S. in 1989. I joined at 17 years old, deployed for Desert Storm, got out for 10 years, and went back in after 9/11. Did 3 more tours to Iraq. So I got 4 tours total in Iraq, United States Army. I was blown up by a roadside bomb in 2007. And after going all my physical therapy and everything, after being injured, I got talked into doing stand-up comedy. So today, 15 years later, I'm doing stand-up comedy, motivational speaking, and just trying to get back and do my part to help others.
What made you join the Army?
When I first joined, it was my uncle that talked me into it. I needed more discipline in my life, and he knew that. So he talked me into it at 17. And, of course, the second time I went back in because of 9/11.
What were some of the experiences you had while a part of Operation Desert Storm?
Desert Storm was, a lot different than today's war, of course. First experience at 19 years old is still different. You're a little scared. You're unsure of what's happening. I got really good at volleyball.
Okay.
Desert Storm. As you know, it wasn't as extensive as the war today. Not bad. It was good camaraderie with friends that you make in the military is amazing. It was actually a good experience in life and helped me grow up a little bit faster.
Did you have any experiences that affected you mentally while you were there, or was it pretty good?
It was a pretty safe. We got shot at a few times with some artilleries and some Patriot missiles and stuff. You don't realize how much it messes with you when you're alert about your life every day until you get back, and then that's when it really hits, when you're home again and you're trying to turn that switch off, knowing that you're not in the combat zone anymore. So that was a little rough at first, but I was able to get over that hump. Probably it took me a year or so, and I felt like I was back on track again.
And you mentioned you re-enlisted in the Army in 2001 after 9/11. What are your memories of that day? How did it make you feel?
It felt good to go back again, just because of what happened to our country. And I was 30 years old, and I couldn't just sit and watch. I knew that I had the experience from when I was 19 in a war zone that I'd be able to help the troops today dealing with what they're about to go through, and I could still continue to fight for my country. And, in that case, we're looking at fighting for the world against terrorism.
Mm. What was your first day like in Iraq?
First day back in Iraq, again, was 2003, as an initial push on this one. And it was a neat position because I had the experience before, but I re-enlisted, so I was a lower rank, but I was older. I was the same age as some of the higher rank enlisted, but I was still rank-wise, I was with, the 20-year-olds. So I had that unique position to help them, but then also help communicate between the higher enlisted and the lower enlisted. So it was a really neat position that I got to be in. And it was that same thing, though. When we hit, like in Desert Storm, we originally stopped in Basra. This time, Basra was one of the first towns we went through, and it was just, memories came back of the town and stuff like that. Nothing bad.
What kind of work was involved in Iraq? Like, what kind of work did you do as a part of the Army there?
So I was a motor transport operator, truck driver, and I do anything from bringing troops in on a raid to hauling equipment to humanitarian stuff. We did it all in 2003. I mean, some of the best is doing the humanitarian stuff, rebuilding the country with the locals there. As it got near the end of 2003 and beginning of 2004, when I was out there, we were rebuilding some of the roads and stuff like that, the guardrails. And one of the Iraqis that was helping to build the roads again and the guardrails I was working with, turns out him and I were both in Basra in Desert Storm together. We were fighting each other in Desert Storm. So here we were in 2004 rebuilding the country together. It was pretty amazing. Small world.
What were those first 2 tours like?
The first 2, really, say 2003, really busy. Again, with the unknown as we first went into the country. When I went back in 2005, it was a little more structural. We had bases set up. We'd have to set them up. So that part was a little easier, but rules of engagement change each time, but it's all kind of the same thing. It's the same routine as far as my job, my mission. The people are great. I've made lots of friends over there. Again, I love the humanitarian stuff and helping rebuild and help people who need help. The terrorists were coming in a lot from Syria border, and I was up near that area. And so we helped clean out a bunch of IED schools and stuff like that. We helped clear that border up. So it's really good to help that town of Telefar up there. And the mayor and the people of Telefar, Iraq, really appreciate our mission that year.
And the third tour, what happened with that?
Yeah, that was a short tour. I was only there 3.5 weeks probably total, less than a month. When my Humvee got hit by a roadside bomb, it blew up the Humvee and threw it 20 meters, flipping it upside down. I was the only survivor. Out of the 5 men in the vehicle, I was the only survivor. I was burnt over 38% of my body. My head was burnt to the skull. I eventually lost my left hand, had to amputate it due to injuries. They actually got me from Iraq back in the States to the hospital in San Antonio, Texas, in 72 hours. I spent 6 months in the hospital, and then total 3 years recovery. I have 48 surgeries to date with the recovery and everything, the skin grafts.
Do you remember what was going through your mind as the Humvee was kind of like in the air?
Yeah, the whole day is blanked out for me. I remember having coffee that morning, and that's it. I had an extra cup of coffee before we rolled out the gate. And I could know that day because the captain in the vehicle that had died, it's the only day he ever rode out with me. So I knew it was that day that we were waiting on him, and I had an extra cup of coffee. And that's the only reason I can remember that's the actual date that it happened. I don't remember anything after that except waking up in Texas in the hospital 2 weeks later.
What did that feel like, waking up not remembering all those things?
I was, especially on the medication, I was hallucinating, so I thought I was captured. I'm strapped down into this bed with metal splints to hold the skin grafts together, but I have no idea what's going on. I kept trying to break out and escape. I thought the nurses were out to get me. They were bad people. I heard I wasn't the nicest person. I don't remember all those, doing it, but I've heard mean things of me spitting at nurses, putting them in headlocks when they were trying to help me. Yeah, 6 months, just a month of the ICU. After the ICU, after 30 days, then I remember really waking up and knowing that I'm in the hospital. And then I just kept thinking, at first, I'm just going to get better. They're going to fix me. I didn't realize how bad it was. They're going to fix me, and then I'm going to go back to work, in a couple months.
How big of an explosion can an IED cause?
When they did the investigation on mine, what they did is they took 3 155 rounds that these tanks shoot. I don't know how to explain how big an explosion that would be. But it was, they said 3 to 4 artillery shells just buried underneath the Humvee in the road. And so, to blow up that armored Humvee and blow it 20 meters, flipping it upside down, you could barely see anything on the Humvee except you could recognize the door where I was sitting in the front tire. Other than that, you could barely tell it was a Humvee. It left a hole 5 feet in diameter and 3 feet deep.
You mentioned that you've kind of blanked out for that time. Do you remember how it felt to be in the pain that you were?
Yeah, after a lot of the surgeries is when I remember most of my pain coming in and out of surgeries with the pain and getting the burn skin cleaned off is really painful when they try to debride you and clean all that bad skin off. That's really, really painful. I can't fathom anything else that's any more painful than that I've ever been through.
We talked a little bit about the physical injuries, but what were the mental injuries that you had from that day? Yeah,
the mental injuries are the toughest ones. A lot of people see me and, physically how I look, you could tell. But the mental injuries are the toughest. The physical ones, you figure out how to do it. How do I do stuff with one hand? How do I do this where my eyes don't close, or I got to be careful because of the skin grafts in the sun? That, you just figure it out. The mental part is the hardest because you could have gone through something, say, not as physical. People always tell me, I haven't been through what you've been through. And I'm like, no, if it's the hardest thing you've been through in your life, then it's just as hard as what I went through. You don't know any different. You don't know any harder. I don't know any harder. So the mental part is still the same, and the toughest part that you'll continue to battle. It's a thing that goes on. We talked about Desert Storm, and it'd say about a year kind of get back to normal again. But after 3 deployments in this war And just as you start to try to adjust, you go back again, and then it's over. It's a routine over and over. And I think it's something that's stuck with me for the rest of my life now. And you learn to live with it, though. It is possible to live with PTSD, and just understanding your triggers. We all have different triggers for different reasons, and whether you're in war or not, anybody that may be suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, it just depends on the trauma they go through. But it's all mentally the same thing. It's a really tough situation.
When was it first kind of mentioned to you that you might have PTSD?
That was already kind of established after the second tour. But yeah, and of course, there's other things. All it did was add to the PTSD where at first I could watch a war movie, no problem. If I went to a hospital, I got sick. The hospitals made me anxious with the surgeries and all that stuff. So I ended up, getting trauma from all the surgeries and everything like that in the hospital and the pain from that more than I did from being in combat. And of course, that has its own triggers and stuff too that you have from that.
You're listening to Wellbeing, a nationally distributed radio show and podcast. My guest today is Bobby Henline, an Iraq war veteran with a PTSD journey. How did life change for you when you kind of came back from the third tour?
It was really hard to accept that I couldn't be in the military anymore. I couldn't do my job to help others. I felt useless for about 18 months when I first got back in the hospital and stuff. And I just wanted to I didn't want to wake up each morning. I prayed to God every night just to not let me wake up. I had survivor's guilt. I just felt like I was useless. I shouldn't be here. It'd be easier for my family if I didn't make it. They'd have to worry if I was going to survive the next surgery. They could just move on with their life. And I was just really depressed and beating myself up inside, but I never showed that on the outside. I always try to be positive in front of my kids and other people and make them laugh and make them feel better about everything. But after those 18 months when they finally got a skin graft to work on my head, it was burnt to the skull, so I finally got that saved. That was kind of that point where I was like, okay, I'm going to be okay at this point. I'm going to make it, and if I'm alive just to raise my children and help them with whatever they need in their life, or I'm going to be alive to help raise one of my grandchildren and teach them something. If that's the reason I'm alive, then I'm happy for that, and I want to be here. And I just started looking at life in a more positive way and realized how blessed I really was.
Were there many supports available for PTSD in the late 2000s around when this was happening?
There's support out there, but then it was still no one wanted to ask for help. You didn't want to have it affect your job. We're all worried about that. Luckily, we can talk about it more now, and there's help for it, trying to get people to ask for help. And that's the hard part. Even though the help is there, it's getting the people to ask for help. And that's the toughest because we always try to be so tough. Like, oh, I got this. I'm good. We try to get those dark times on our own, and really it's okay to ask for a hand and just to talk to somebody sometimes. That's all it takes.
Did you find it hard to ask for help?
Definitely. I was always the one trying to help everybody else and putting myself last. And I was doing that for years. I started doing the stand-up comedy. I started sharing my stories through motivational speaking. And I was helping others. But that also was helping me, but never really, really deep in diving down and helping myself or giving myself time to process stuff. So I went through a few years of, a lot of alcohol. I did get addicted to painkillers for a couple of years because of what you have to be on to survive the burns. Once I realized I was addicted to them, I immediately started taking myself off. Just every 2 weeks, cutting them in half. So eventually I was all the way off. And today I don't have any pain meds. The only thing I do is lubrication and eye drops is the only medication that I'm on.
Did you find that the PTSD affected your relationships with others?
Yes, PTSD definitely affects your relationship with others. Well, even now, in my relationship, I have issues. We'll take separate cars to, like, say we're going to go to the golf course. Something may hit me, and I just don't feel right, and I don't want to golf. And my fiance is like, "Well, I want to golf. I can't just leave with you, and I don't want her to leave because of me." And then I start feeling bad. Well, I changed my mind. You don't have to leave. You have fun. So it's that thing right there. I don't want to interrupt their lives. Because I just know sometimes I can't do it. I can't push myself to do it. I just got to walk away from whatever it is that's giving me the anxiety. And there's other times that I'm just having the time of my life, and you would have no idea. And there's times that it hits me that I can get through it. I've learned to take baby steps through different situations, and I kind of learned my limitation of how much I can push myself, and then, okay, I need to leave and just get out of the area. And you just never know what it is. Sometimes there's certain triggers, and you realize what it is, whether it's a crowd or it's just the setup of the room, the building. I've gone to places I didn't like the way the parking lot gave me anxiety, and I just turn around and leave. Like, we plan on going to get something to eat, and they're like, no, this parking lot just gave me anxiety. And then I get mad at myself for having anxiety. Like, you're an idiot. You should just park and go in the restaurant. What's the big deal? And then I have an argument with internally, and I just drive and go home. Try again the next day.
Are those, so is that kind of like part of your strategies? If you get anxiety, you kind of just know to take yourself away from the situation.
Exactly. You take yourself away from the situation, you breathe through it, and you've got to push a little bit here and there. I've been trying to sit with my back to the door in restaurants, slowly training myself to do that. A lot of us in first responders, law enforcement, or military, we don't like our backs to the door. We like to see who's coming in, who's around us. Otherwise, it's very distracting. We're always looking over our shoulder. So I'm trying to get better at that. My fiance knows all the time. She's like, "Okay, what do you want to sit? What table is good for you?" But I'm trying to slowly break that and get used to it and know that she's going to watch my back. It's okay. I can relax. I'm not in the war zone. I don't have to have those skills on me right now. I'm going to be okay. And it's a lot of talking to yourself.
Did you find it hard to talk about the PTSD and the experiences you had in Iraq with others when you kind of first got back?
With other veterans, it's a lot easier. I didn't want to explain stuff to family. It took a little while to do that. Once I started telling strangers, because I realized by me being positive and continuing to chase my dreams, I lived my life to the fullest, other people saw that, and that helped them. So that's why I started sharing the story. And I thought, well, if I could continue to share my story and chase my dreams, and that puts life in another perspective for others, then I got to continue to do that, because that's the best revenge I can get, is I can help more people than that guy's hurt. So I just started doing that more, and it just got easier to tell my family about it, to tell my kids stories when they want to hear it. A couple of them don't really like me to talk about it. Other ones have questions all the time. A couple of my kids are like, "Hey, what about this, Dad? What about that?" They'll ask me questions, and I'd be honest with them as much as I can.
Did it feel good to kind of start opening up about the experiences?
It did feel really good. It was, I would cry when I first started telling them experiences, especially if they were close calls experiences that I had out there, because I never told them, "Hey, I got shot at today, but I'm good. And bomb blew up, the vehicle next to me, but I'm fine." I had a good day. I'm alive. That's all you need to know. I didn't tell them about any of that stuff. So when I opened up about that, I started talking to them. All those emotions that I held back would come out. And I, realized, oh my God, I almost died. I wasn't here to tell you the story. I almost died, and I wasn't here to see you graduate high school and to see my grandchildren. So all those emotions come up that you've been hiding down about, almost dying multiple times are coming really close. So all that comes up. You cry as you're telling them, and then you got to let them know that you're okay. It's coming out. And now I can tell those stories without being upset about it or those emotions being bottled. But every now and then, even when I'm on stage and I'll share a story, and especially with about my grandchildren and holding them and those experiences, it just depends on the day and the audience and who I'm talking to. It can really hit, and then I'm crying on stage again. But I think that's the best. It's just open, it's honest, and I think that's what helps people, is they feel that they now can share everything with me. I get parents that have lost their children that want to talk, and I don't understand that feeling. I can even imagine what that's like to have when your children die before you. But I have parents like that open up to me. They want to talk to me, especially the Gold Star families. Their sons and daughters that died during the war. They really like to talk about their son or their daughter and their service. They're very proud of them. And a lot of people are scared to ask them about them, but if you do know anybody like that, they are very happy to talk about their son and daughter and their service. So, yeah, they don't like to be treated different. They want to be treated normal, just like us crazy-looking wounded guys with missing body parts. when you see it, treat us normal, like, "Hey, how you doing?" Make fun of us, too. Nag us a little bit, rag on us.
And do you feel the same about that, Bobby? Like the injuries you got from that, do you want people to treat you like just as normal?
Yes, definitely. Treat me as normal, harass me, make some jokes. Make sure they're good jokes, though, no bad jokes.
When you did start opening up, did the symptoms of the PTSD, did you find that they got a bit better? Like they kind of weren't as bad?
Yes, it definitely helps to talk about it. It will make them better. Again, I don't think they'll ever go away totally, but at least now if it's open, it's out there. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm going to have to go. And then they're like, okay. Your friend's like, okay, he's just going to disappear. That's just how he has to deal. They learn. I got friends like that. They call the Irish goodbye. They just disappear. But we know they're okay. We just we understand the situation. 30 minutes later, we might text them just to check on them. But yeah, it definitely makes it a lot easier. If people know what's going on, you don't feel like you have to hide it as much.
When did you first start doing comedy?
It was I started doing comedy 2 years after I was injured. They kept trying to fix my hand and get that to work, my left hand, and they couldn't, so that's when I had my hand amputated. And I was always a jokester at the hospital, joking around with the staff and the other wounded veterans. But it was my occupational therapist when I was getting my prosthetic hand. She told me I should do stand-up comedy, and I told her there's no way it's going to work. I'm like, we're a bunch of veterans, your hospital staff here. We all have a 6-inch humor. You have to have that dark humor for those type of jobs. I said, we get it. I don't think the general public will be able to laugh at it. I don't think it's going to work. And she kept nagging me. So finally I went to prove her wrong and show her it's not going to work. So now I've been trying to prove her wrong for 13 years.
Okay. You're listening to Wellbeing, a nationally distributed radio show and podcast. My guest today is Bobby Henline, an Iraq war veteran with a PTSD journey. Are there any comedians that you got inspiration of?
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up, I loved to listen to Bill Cosby, Eddie Murphy, Delirious album, Cheech and Chong, Richard Pryor, Gallagher, Robin Williams, all those guys that I watched when I was younger, listened to on the old record players back then. And then after I got into comedy, I've had a lot of bigger name comedians like that help me. I actually got to meet Robin Williams once. Louis Black has been good. Bob Saget helped me out. We just lost him, and he did this. He told me when he saw my stand-up, and he said, "You should do a joke about saving face." And oh my God, I said, why didn't I think of that? And I know this is radio. For those that can't see me, my face was practically burnt off. I kind of looked like Freddy Krueger. So, when Bob said that, you got to do a joke about saving face. But, Brad Garrett from Every Loves Raymond, they've all helped me along the way. These guys have always stepped up and helped me and given me advice along my way. It's been amazing.
Are there any jokes you could share with us right now that would kind of work on the radio?
That's the funny part. A lot of my stuff is it's visual. It's a visual. The way I do it, the self-deprecating. I was trying to think. I'll talk about, I was in the Army. I did 4 tours in Iraq. I loved my job. I had a great time. But I got to tell you, that last tour was a real blast.
Certainly.
It's crazy. Yeah, my Humvee got hit by a roadside bomb. The crazy thing is it took me 4 tours and 1 IED to figure out my lucky number was 3.
There you go.
I make fun of myself what it's like to be burned. Because I do one-handed jokes. I make fun of my kids and, just life. But mostly it's self-deprecating style.
Are you going to be coming out to Australia anytime soon?
I wish. Oh my God! I follow a couple of different burger joints in Australia, and the burgers look amazing. I wish I could. I mean, I have nothing scheduled. Especially, I know you guys had all those fires. I wanted to come out there and talk to everybody and try to inspire. And that's what I love doing, whether it's comedy or sharing my story and a mix of comedy and just trying to lift people up through hard times. We all need reminders. Sometimes I'm the reminder, and sometimes I got to be reminded. And we all have our stories. We all get to remind people about life, and that's what we do. We help each other out by everybody sharing their story, no matter what. We all have stuff we've been through.
Since the war, how much support has there been for Iraq vets with PTSD?
There's been a lot more today. Again, the civilian side has stepped up huge for the veterans. There's so many different programs now, from California to Texas, all the way up to the northeast coast here. I mean, wherever you go, there's so many connections to different organizations that help with how to deal with yourself, how to communicate with the spouse, because the spouse is going through something too. So how do you communicate again what's happening? So with the children. So there's lots of different programs like that through nonprofits. It's huge here. I even started my own trying to teach others how I learned to deal with it. So I started Forging Forward Foundation, and it's like I forge forward through the fire. How do I show others how to forge forward through what they've been through? And it's about outlets. It's about learning how to deal with those times when you don't have anybody else around. Outlets help me. And Mother Nature is one of the most healing things. So if you can get out in a kayak, go out to the golf course. You don't have to be good at golf. Go out there and hit a ball all day. It's such a great feeling. I'm horrible at it, but I always feel good afterwards because I'm just out there in Mother Nature. We teach veterans and first responders how to forge knives out of railroad spikes. We teach them introduction to welding, painting, songwriting, poetry writing. These are different tools that you need in your toolbox. Because you're not going to like all of them, right? And not everybody's going to like all these things, but if you try different ones, if I can bring you in on a retreat and I show you some different tools, you take the tools you want home with you and you start using those. So that's why I started the Forging Forward Foundation.
Did you find it hard to admit to yourself at first that like there was something mentally going on, like with the PTSD?
I don't think I found it hard to. I realized it was there, but it's just that I got this, just like everybody else. I just got to deal with it. It's just part of my life, and which it is. But I brushed it off as just part of my life. It's just the way I'm going to be. I didn't even think I could make it better. And then slowly I said, no, I got to make this better, just for my children, for my family. Most important for them, I got to make it better so that we can communicate about what I'm happy instead of just, I'd be going to a drive-through, ordering food. If the kids didn't know what they want right away, I could drive off. If I couldn't hear the speaker correctly, I didn't have patience, I just pull out of the drive-through, just go, and I just couldn't handle it, take them all home. All right, you're eating chips for dinner now. I couldn't handle long lines. I couldn't do fun stuff with my family because I was totally just worried about them the whole time. It wasn't me then. I did better by myself because I didn't have to worry about protecting anybody else. So I kept doing a lot of stuff alone. So I wanted to get better so that I can take those baby steps so I can enjoy my family more and not waste the life that I've been given. If I wasted my life and just sat on the couch drinking all day going, I'm miserable, I'm worthless, there's 4 of the men that died that day that would rather be alive and feel my pain and go through what I've gone through. Their family would rather be there, have them here too. So I'd be letting all of them down also. So I got to keep living for them. They're my 4 angels, and they've been guiding me all this way. All the families are big supporters for me, and so that really helps me too.
What did the recovery process or the healing process with the PTSD look like for you?
For me, the healing process is just what we talked about. It's about talking about it, opening up, sharing your stuff. If it's going to one of these retreats with these nonprofits, whether it's mine or something else like that, I highly recommend veterans do that. Anybody going through PTSD, again, it doesn't have to be a veteran. You can have for so many different reasons. Reach out to other people who have been through what you've been through. So key to talk to others, to know you're not alone. That helps. And when you're sharing your stories, you could share, hey, I tried this. If you tried this helps me. Oh, I never thought of that. And so those little things help each other out. It's amazing just to get with others that are similar to what you've been through.
What would your advice be to younger veterans that may have gone through some pretty confronting things and may have PTSD and have not yet gotten help? What would you say to them?
Yeah, for those still struggling or just now figuring out and you're ready to ask for help, reach out to your friends. Reach out, look for these nonprofits. If you see anybody like me in social media or whatever that might be highlighted, reach out to us. We love sharing. We love sharing our connections and helping others. So we answer. We're there. But it's okay to ask for help. It really is. And one of the other biggest thing we have is survivor's guilt. And that was real bad for me, of course, in the beginning. And it still hits me from time to time, and I got to just remind myself, and I share this with others that do the same. When you're feeling that survivor's guilt, like you feel like you shouldn't be blessed, they shouldn't be having a good life because you lost a friend out there in the war zone or whatever you got survivor's guilt from, remember, if you were the one that didn't make it home and the others did, what would you want for them? And it's exactly what they want for you. They want you to live your life to the fullest. Don't let them die in vain. Keep living for them. Don't waste the life you've been given.
After all we've talked about, Bobby, with all the experiences you've had, did you enjoy your work as a part of the Army?
Yes, I really enjoyed my job in the military. I took that 10-year break, and I should have never got out. I mean, it was a natural fit for me. I loved my job. I loved the camaraderie there. And again, it's not war. It's nothing like that. It's the humanitarian stuff that we do. That's amazing. If we have to fight, we fight. But the humanitarian stuff is the best when you're rebuilding and trying to help others. And that's what the Army does. I know a lot of people have this image of it's just want to run around and kill people. It's nothing like that. It's trying to help others, and sometimes you have to fight for others, and that's what you get to do. Well, and I always like standing up for others.
Well, it was fantastic having you on the show today, Bobby.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And let's get me out there and share my story and help others. I can't wait to get to Australia. So if you guys are listening to the show, contact me. Let's do this.
My guest today was Bobby Henline, a comedian and Iraq war veteran with a PTSD journey. Tune in next week where we speak with 9/11 survivor Will Jimeno about his PTSD story following the September 11th attacks. And if you like this content, check out the Wellbeing podcast for more. Thank you for listening. I'm Jack Hodgins, and all of us at Wellbeing wish you well.